All right, Andrew Eastman with the ESUCC, and I'm grateful to Annette Weisey of ESU5 for joining us for kind of a second video in a three-parter here on norms, procedures, and routines. And so in our first video, we talked a little bit about establishing norms, so make sure that you watch that because we had some really great ideas that we're going to build upon in this particular video. As this conversation is going to focus a little bit more on maintaining norms in that remote setting. And so, Annette, thank you so much for your leadership and being a great thought partner on this topic with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun to do these. So in the last video, we talked about setting those norms like you talked. And I talked about the process that exists in science where you have 4 buckets and let the kids kind of do more of the figuring out what those look like rather than just having them come up with norms just randomly. So you're kind of guiding them. You're kind of being a puppet master and getting the norms more where you would want them as a teacher to begin with. So we know from our work in instructional models, the instructional models always tell us that we should go back and review those rules and procedures or those norms, whatever you want to call them. You should review those periodically through the year. I'm not sure that until I ran into this process through, again, the science side of things, that I ever really knew what that meant or what that looked like with kids. So I typically would bring the rules out and, okay, here they are. You remember these? Yeah, let's read them.
Yeah.
And, you know, would try to do the best of what I knew how to do at that point. But this process through the science world, and again, it's coming from the science world, but it really is applicable for everything. Really just makes a lot of sense. It's really about taking temperature checks, not just reviewing those norms, but how are we doing with them? What are we doing? Are we doing a good job? And if so, what made that a good job? You know, what's the evidence of that? Or if we need to do better, well, why? What could we do that would be better? So through the Zoom, you have the annotation ability for students. So there's lots of nice tools in there. I think the stamps work really nice for this because you don't want to spend a ton of time doing these temperature checks, but it is important to go back and really make kids think about how are they doing? Are they committed to that community and so forth? So it can be a simple bringing up your slide of your norms and having kids use those annotation tools. They don't necessarily need to do all 4 of these every time. Maybe you only want them to choose the one norm that they really felt we did great on today, or the one that we really need to look at and do better. You can kind of fit this to whatever time you have or whatever you want that to be. But these are 4 different categories that I use with kids and even with adults when I do things. So there's a star stamp. So as a class, what did we really rock today? In these norms, what did we really do well with? And each person could put their star stamp beside the norm that they thought that we really did a great job with. And then individually, you could use the heart stamp. What did you personally feel like you did really well with today? And then on that other side, you know, what do we need to work on? So a check mark for, as a group, what was harder for us today? What didn't we do so well with as a whole group? And then the X for, again, personally, what would you like to work on and do better with? So you can go ahead and have kids put those up. You could talk about them at that point because typically you're going to see some really strong patterns that are going to show up. You're going to see lots of kids responding, you know, this is a norm that we need to work really hard on. So you'll see the patterns and you can talk to kids about that and really kind of review, okay, what does that look like? If we want to do better here, how are we going to change things tomorrow? So that could be done at that point when you do that temperature check, or you could take a quick screenshot of it, put it up the next morning and start your class with it. Well, this is what we said we did yesterday. So how are we going to improve today? And let kids talk about it a little bit before they move on. So again, this isn't something you want to do every day. It's just a check-in periodically. So maybe you want to schedule it for a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. Or maybe you've had a really rough class period and that would be a good time to pull it up and let kids identify what didn't we do real well with, or what did we do well with, and talk about it at that point. Or the opposite might be true. Maybe you had a really great class period and you want to replicate that. So you can pull up those norms again, let kids talk about, what did we do really well? Why was this day so great? And, hopefully get them to replicate it. But I just think those temperature checks and getting kids to actually identify the positives and the negatives and talk about why that is pretty powerful for maintaining that class environment the way you want it to be maintained.
Yeah, and gosh, and looking at this too, I love that it is both instructive, right? Because we're taking the time to revisit these and to self-assess, but that it's constructive as well. And that, as you noted this is a formative check where we're going to allow the feedback we receive to alter what we focus on moving forward and modifying our behaviors thereafter. And a culture piece, when you're talking about celebrating something like the star or the heart, I love that this has the individual aspect along with the class, because I do think that it's important to hold the entire group accountable to our individual success and to be able to explore the relationship between those two. Because I think sometimes learners think, well, if I'm getting it, we're good, right? Like sort of think about the whole experience being something that really is centered around them versus it being a collaborative community. And so thank you so much for sharing this just wonderful idea. I think it's simple, as you said, something that could be done even, every couple of weeks or so. It doesn't have to be every day.
Yep. It's just a quick little thing that helps kids learn how to be reflective.
Absolutely love that. And so thanks for sharing this really important strategy with us.
You bet.